Week 2 of college football is in the books, and we have got a lot to talk about. Whenever we look, guys, we have got to talk about, first and foremost, Florida State dropping the ball to Boston College because I gotta be honest, I told y'all they would. We've got to talk about Oklahoma versus Houston because I was hoping preseason, gentlemen, that we'd learn a little bit more about Oklahoma in this week 2 matchup. Turns out, I think they're going to roll Houston, do dastardly things to them. I
Yep.
don't think they're going to get off of page one and a, maybe not even page half in that Houston game on their script. So it's probably looking like another week Tulane next week for Oklahoma. That's a game where I think they'll have to, or at least want to, go deeper into the playbook to really test themselves because Tulane's a solid team, right? Great team to go out there and do some stuff. We got to talk about Bama, USF, another team where do some things differently. Very excited to see this matchup. But gentlemen, introduce yourselves before we kick this off. Let the people know where they can find all of your great content, and we'll just go straight down the line.
My name is Coach Sean. You can definitely find me if you are willing to tap in with me. I would appreciate it on Twitter. My handles are JMHO, which is just my humble opinion. JMHO Sports Talk Total. You can find me on Twitter and YouTube at that. JMHO Sports Talk. That's on Twitter and YouTube.
And Jonathan Lewis, Bama Talk with John on YouTube and at BT, right, with John. So think of beans and tacos, but John, I love my food. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Talking Bama football, talk a little bit of everything, but it's primarily Alabama football. What's going on, guys? What's going on, Antoine?
Man, happy to be here. Happy to be here. Let's kick it off because I like doing things in a nice sequestered order if I can help it, even though I'm not very good at that. And we kind of just end up going everywhere on this show, but that's the fun of it, right? Shout out Travelpreneur. Shout out Antoine C. Dub, Keyway, Boomer129, Alabama Nation. Brandon, I don't know where you can get that. I don't know where you can get it in Tuscaloosa, but I'm sure you could order it. But if you
Bama
need it by
Fever?
tomorrow.
Bama Fever possibly is what I would assume you could find it at. Yeah, that's where I would start at if I were you.
There you go. There you go. But want to do a nice little order. Let's start with Florida State, Boston College, because my take on this, guys, it's kind of similar to my frustrations on Monday and then on Wednesday on the SEC Connect with Miami, Florida, right? It's not that you lost. Well, less that whenever I look at Miami and Florida, it's not that Florida lost. Miami looks like they're going to be a damn good team. It's how you lost that really riled me up in that Miami Florida game. I can halfway say the same about Florida State, Boston College, but there's a massive talent discrepancy between those two programs, or at least in theory, there's a talent discrepancy between those two programs, just like there's a talent discrepancy between Georgia Tech and Florida State. But here we are. Florida State 0-2 on the year, 0-2 in conference play. And guys, the reason why I sat up here after the Georgia Tech game and told everybody, Jay was on here, and if y'all will remember of Unfair Sports, love that guy. I told him if Bleacher Report gives us the option to pick Boston College, Florida State, I'm taking Boston College. Castellanos is a better threat on the ground than Nez Haynes King. Boston College was the second best rushing team in the ACC behind Georgia Tech. And C-Dub says, is it talent or poor coaching? I'm going to give you a little bit of a hot take here, C-Dub. One, and Coach Sean heard me say this last year. John, I don't think you've ever heard me say this. I really wish Jay was in here because I told him this like week 4 about Florida State. I don't like their offense. And I've said this so many times. It last year, and I think I get it because you had those two monsters on the outside, good quarterback, but it felt like you passed the controller to your little brother playing Madden, and he had like Amari Cooper on one side, Jalen Waddle on the other in the slot, and then Tyreek Hill out on the other side, and he's just running goes because he's like, okay, well, they're not going to get him, so just go. and we'll throw it deep. That's what Norvell's offenses felt like last year. And this year, there doesn't seem to be a rhyme or reason as to what he does. So I do think that poor coaching is probably close. And I think that also goes into, you pick up DJU. I know Florida State and Twitter, they're like, oh, DJU's the reason for this. DJU's not a first-year quarterback, guys. It's not like there's 1 year of film on him and you're like, oh, I can fix him. There's 4 years of film, and that's the guy you went out and got. So at that point, it's like, Norvell, this falls on you. But two, and Coach Sean, after this, I want to get your opinion. People, I see this, and nothing makes me madder. Two things that just tick me off, guys: bad arguments and bad football. And I've seen both on Twitter. And people are like, oh, well, people are crucifying Mike Norvell for living in the transfer portal, but then they're also mad at Dabo for not. So which is it? And I'm like, geez, it's almost as if there's a middle ground. Who would have known? Living in the portal is dangerous for this reason. And I don't mean to be, disrespectful, right? For lack of a better word. Coach Sean, John, y'all know me well enough to know I don't try and talk ill on players or anything. But you want to know the difference between last year Florida State and this year Florida State? They got a bunch of starters out the transfer portal last year. Outside of Roy Dell, who was like a part-time starter at Alabama, and I don't say it's just running back by committee, right?
Yep.
That's what Alabama runs. So like if you're in that rotation, fair play, you could start. Outside of Roy Dell, who did they get? Malik Benson, sure, but even then he was kind of a committee guy. Who did they get that was just a starter? I think that some of those guys that left Bama, that at first we were sitting here saying, oh, we wish they would have stayed, especially some in the secondary that went to Florida State. I don't know that they would be playing at Bama right now after I watched what those freshmen did.
Yep.
Coach Sean, what do you think about that? Because that's where I think the dangers of the portal come and why people are like, oh, well, what happened? It's because the year before you got a bunch of starters. What do you think?
I think you're right. Also, when I look at these guys, man, I really watch those guys. I want to just see what I thought was what the hell's going on. I'm gonna tell you something else that I haven't heard a lot of people speak on. Their offense is stale as hell. And what I mean by stale is,
Yes.
There's no rhyme or reason.
bro, their offense is just not very good, guys. I mean, they run a lot. When you watch these guys, it reminds me of our offense last year a lot.
Yep.
It doesn't make sense. A lot of things that they do, a lot of their routes are not option routes. A lot of that. Shout out to Coach Carl. Shout out to you, man. Shout out to my former players. Shout out to Jonathan. Shout out to Trevor Panier, Antoine. Their offense is very stale. A lot of the time. Shout out to Caitlin. What's up, Caitlin? How you doing? Good to see you. A lot of times DJ is throwing into not open receivers, man. And then when they are open, I've seen at least 4 drops in that game.
Or
Two
he
by the
misses
same-
them.
Yeah, 2 by the same guy, the tight end. So a lot of times, man, is on offense. Offense is synchronization. Offense is repetition, man. Defense is more see what you see on film, and they're gonna run it at some point. Defense is more mental. Offense is just repetition. The only way you get better at offense is just repetition. It's kind of like tackling, actually. The only way you get better at it is you got to do it. You got to do it over and over and over and over. You can't be a team that don't tackle all week and expect them to tackle in the game. It just don't work like that. Offense is like that. It's repetition, repetition. Shout out to Boomer. Oh my God, Boomer's crazy. Yeah, man. And their offense is just last year's kind of like what Ty said. They had a lot of great players that extenuated it made you overlook the fact that some of those calls were bogus. The offense don't fit DJ. The offense need a mobile quarterback with some of those rollouts and some of those mesh routes that they have for him coming out of the pocket throwing, right? Some of those floods that they run. You need a mobile quarterback. You need a quarterback that can roll out and run and keep it if everybody's covered and throw it if somebody's open. It don't DJ is a pocket passer. So it does not the offense don't fit that guy. The guy actually had a pretty good year at Oregon State last year when you go look. That offense did fit him. It did. He actually should have stayed there if you ask me. So it's a combo of things, man. It's a combo. The players, just like Ty said, the players that they got, was it really a win for those guys? Maybe they got the players because they had holes, but it most definitely wasn't because of how great they were. No disrespect to nobody. But you couple that with an uneducated offense, with an offense that just doesn't make a lot of sense. Hence, what you get. And to be quite frank, Boston College put belt to their asses. They was more physical than them in the trenches.
Yep.
Boston College ran a competent offense. They know what type of team they are. Boston College has an identity. Florida State does not, and you saw that on Saturday.
And John, before you go,
Which I
this is the one thing I'll add. Boston College had, I believe, over 200 yards rushing. Florida State had less than 30. That's
21.
pathetic.
Mm-hmm.
Power 4 college football. That's pathetic. Take it away, John. Like that, I didn't know what to say when I saw that.
So I'm going to break this off into two pieces, right? The first one is this. You went out and got DJU, right? But was he going to be the savior for what was to come? I think we can all agree to no. He's not to that level of a quarterback, right? Number two, he doesn't fit the system. Number three, are we convinced that Mike Norvell can get these players to buy into the system, right? Because you're not going to always look. It's easy to blame the quarterback. It's easy just to blame DJU. But at the end of the day, they're failing on multiple fronts. This is not a quarterback problem. This is a program problem at this point. And I think at some point you have to convince people, you have to get these players to buy in. It's not just all on the players. It's not just all on the coaches. But there's a lack of motivation at Florida State. It was obvious in the Georgia Tech game. This vaunted defensive line, where was that at? Where's it been the past 2 weeks? And the second big point I want to bring out is this. Are we overstating what Florida State is? I went to plenty of Tallahassee games when I was stationed out in Panama City, right? Just a quick drive over there to watch them play. But the fact is, Mike Norvell only has them at about 15th on an average for recruiting every year, right? So, and I feel like for some reason we have it in our heads that this is a blue blood program. Then it should be almost, I guess we're giving them the benefit of the doubt. They should be outperforming the standards that we're putting on them. And I think that's a problem. I think it's a problem that you're depending on players to fix, right? Very important pieces of this offense and defense. That's not going to work. And I think what you're seeing is an opposite problem that you're seeing in Clemson. Dabo refuses to use the portal. Mike Norvell is now reliant on the portal. I mean, I don't know any other way to put it than I think there's just a big problem of buy-in. And I think the long-term problem for Florida State this year is going to be if Mike Norvell can't reel these guys in and get them to buy in very quick, this season is going to take a very quick downturn. And people were talking about Mike Norvell's seat before he went, almost to the playoffs last year, right? Well, I think that's starting to get a little bit reignited now. So.
And it's crazy because he just signed that contract because Jimmy Sexton played Florida State like a fiddle.
Oh my
saying,
gosh, bro.
Oh, well, he's got the Bama offer. If I was Florida State, that administration, I would have been like, let's see the contract. You got an offer? Let's see the offer, and then we will. And then it would have been interesting to see Norvell and Sexton be like, we don't have an offer. We're just saying that.
Yep.
And for those people out there that still believe that Bama was after Mike Norvell, I would ask one question. Why was the plane in Seattle with Bama's AD when Saban retired that same day? If it was Norvell, it's a shorter plane ride to Tallahassee from Tuscaloosa than it is to Seattle. So why was the plane in Seattle? They knew who they wanted, right? And I have suspicions if he says no, then guys, I'm going to be honest. I don't think Norvell was top 3 in terms of like, I think if DeBoer says no, Sark probably would have been someone that they tested the waters on, but we know that Texas can pay you as well as anybody. And he's actually done a good job of turning around the fate of the Longhorns. So if I'm Sark, I'm like, listen, it'd be awesome to follow up the GOAT, but I got something good here going. Interesting to see. But I don't think Norvell was top 3. And I'm with you. I think that this season could get bad for Florida State.
Yes.
And you have to be able to recruit. You have got to be able to recruit. And they just rely on the transfer portal. And I've always said the transfer portal is a Band-Aid.
Yep.
It's not the way you build a roster. It's the way you supplement a roster. The only exception I have to that is if you are in a position like Coach Prime, first year out at Colorado, where he's like, okay, well, I'm inheriting a 1-win team. I got to gut this.
Yeah.
Because and let's be frank here, he's hired to win football games. So I know it might be an uncomfortable conversation, but the man is hired to win football games. So he looks at it and say, I got to gut this and bring it. If you're in a rebuild, fine, right? Build your foundation via the transfer portal until you can give recruits a reason to buy in. Florida State won their conference last year. That foundation is there. I don't know. And Boomer says for that 1 year out of Sark's, true, like that's his first 10-win season, but there's no debate that he has had Texas trending in a positive direction.
Absolutely.
Culturally, in a way that we haven't seen in a while, right? Like this is a multifaceted conversation. And you're right, first 10-win season, we need to see him replicate it. But it's the cohesive recruiting. And before anybody says Texas always recruited well, you're right. There's a difference between getting a bunch of skill positions and having the least amount of offensive linemen recruited in the entirety of the Big 12, as opposed to cohesive recruiting. It's the difference between Brent Venable recruiting and Lincoln Riley recruiting, where Lincoln would take 15, 16 guys, have a good class, like average player recruit would be up there. But Brent is a whole meal. Who would you take, DeBoer or Sark? DeBoer, but that's why I said DeBoer was option number 1. Right? I would take DeBoer. He's beat him twice with less buy-in from a university. Bama got their guy. I feel very strongly about that. But speaking of Bama got their guy, Alabama versus USF. Let's move on to week 2, gentlemen. Some great games this week. And this is a sneaky one. Last year, USF... Texas is all, but that's the exact nuance I just said, Boomer. It's the same with Oklahoma recruited well under Lincoln Riley, but you'd get 15 guys. You wouldn't get a bunch of offensive linemen. And it's not cohesive recruiting. Texas would get a bunch of skill positions and it wasn't nuanced, cohesive recruiting. They fixed that. Sark and them have absolutely fixed the recruiting at Texas to be far more cohesive. They're handling the trenches now. And listen, I know y'all got Fasusi, and that's an unbelievable win, but they're still recruiting the offensive line at a much higher caliber than they ever will. Texas had the least amount of offensive linemen recruited over like a 5 or 6 year period, which is exactly what I'm talking about. That's not cohesive recruiting. It's literally, it's so fascinating to me because I know they're bitter rivals. That's always a fun one to say, bitter rivals. But there is like this similarity between Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma, not on the field, obviously. Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma was very successful, and what Texas experienced from a recruiting standpoint. Just aren't developing. His first class just went to the NFL, Boomer. They are absolutely developing at a higher rate. Look, I get it. You're OU, you're not going to, but that's the truth. They're recruiting more cohesively. And they are developing kids now at a rate where previous staffs weren't. That's why Kelvin Banks will be the first or second tackle off the board this year. Quinn's going to the league. Jaden Blue, if he has a good year, is going to the league. I mean, you got a few guys. Then they have, it's a list of firsts. Sure, but that's my point. Right? That's the point. Regardless, Bama USF. Fan Addict says, give me Bama to cover. Guys, y'all talked about this game yesterday. John, I want to start with you on your breakdown of Alabama versus USF.
So I won't take up too much time because I can sit here and talk about this for an hour. Watching the film, I'm going to say this. Right off the bat, USF likes to play, you know what I mean? Cover one. Well, we'll just say one high. We'll just say one high, right? If they play one high against Alabama in this game for the majority of this game's going to be over by the end of the first quarter. I just don't think it's going to happen. Going back and watching their first game, they like to roll their coverage. I'm assuming that's going to happen just like it did against Western Kentucky. They're going to roll the coverage with a specific side, right? And I think ultimately what it's going to come down to is Jalen Milroe in this game, right? And I think this is going to be a statement game. I know a lot of the hype's going to be talking about what's being said by the USF coach and the players, and there is a lot of it. I mean, as if you already didn't need to give Bama a reason to play this game because of what happened last year. Now we're going to start opening our mouths on social media and give them more of a reason to talk. So I really want to talk less about the X's and O's and say, hey, at the end of the day, when Jalen Milroe and his team steps on the field, good luck. Because these guys aren't coming for your head anymore. They're coming for everyone. You know what I mean? So, and there's a certain point to where you just got to stop. TJ Finley did it last week with Western Kentucky, talking about, Bama may not be who they think they are. You know what I mean? And we saw what happened there, right? 2 picks by Keon Sabb. But when you just look at the X's and O's, I think it comes down to, like Fan Addict, Coach I says, it's the Jimmy and Joe's. And I don't see this game being close. I think it's going to be a complete annihilation. I think minus 31, yeah, they're going to easily cover. I think the over-under is like 63.5. I think we're going to be well over that, in my opinion. I can't find a reason for USF to win the game. And I love Brown. I love the quarterback. It's athletic, accurate, right? Gives you a lot of good things to look at. I think maybe the first or 2 scripted drives, he'll keep him in the game, right? He'll drive a little bit, just like last week with TJ Finley. Same thing. Drive down the field a little bit. But ultimately what's going to come down to, it's going to be the talent on the field, right? That's what it usually comes down to in these disparity games between Alabama or Georgia and the opponents that are coming up and getting paid, plain and simple. But yeah, no, and I have respect for USF, right? It's just sometimes you got to know when to stop. And right now I'm on Twitter as an Alabama fan and I'm receiving tweets and it's like, okay, these guys really think they can win. Like they are really talking this stuff. And that's I think that's a problem. Right. So, and I think if I'm seeing this as a lone YouTuber with 185 subscribers, if people are coming at me, can we only imagine what's being fed to Jalen Milroe, Justice Haynes, that defensive line, those front 7 guys? And it's like, guys, these dudes are really talking this business. I think we're about to give them the business. So, yeah, I'm not going to go too much into that game because we talked about it ad nauseum last night. Me and Coach Sean did. So,
shout out to Ebony in the house. Ebony, the mother of Noah Carter, future superstar for Alabama, already looking like he's going to be a force in that room, which is crazy considering he just got there. So for him to already be a guy that the staff is turning to shows you how much faith they have in here. Thank you for coming in here as always, Ebony. She asked what happened last year against USF. Quite frankly, they punched Bama in the mouth over and over and over again. And Bama won. Bama pulled it out. Now, to be as fair as possible, there was also a monsoon that happened in that game that really kind of made it difficult for Bama to throw the ball at the rate they would like. And when I say monsoon, I truly do mean monsoon. They had to repaint the field after everybody came back out. It was raining that hard. Like, I'm not joking. They had to delay the game because of rain. And then when the teams came back out, they had to delay it even further so that they could repaint the field because all the paint had washed off the field. I've never seen that before. That was just wild to me. So that's what happened last year. Bama won, but that's why, Ebony, I contended on my show that this is a bit of a revenge game because USF punched Bama square in the jaw. And really, the offensive line for Alabama, USF does a really good job of what they do up front in terms of their front 7. They do a lot of aggressive plays. They send pressure from a variety of areas. That's
Mm.
going to be a ton of fun to see how this offensive line pick it up. But Coach Sean, before you go, I want to hear your take on this game, but also I think it is important to note that last year when Bama played USF, neither Tyler Booker or Jaden Roberts were on that offensive line. Neither one of them were starting, and JC was a monster. But JC with Roberts next to him, that's an entirely different conversation. Coach Sean, talk to me about this game.
Benny asked what happened last year against USF. I'm gonna give you the real version of what happened last year, the inside version of what happened. You had half the team pissed that Tyler Buckner was starting. Coach Saban knew Tyler Buckner wasn't ready to start, but you had these rich alums that wanted to see Tyler Buckner. You had these fans that think they know football that wanted to see Tyler Buckner. So Coach Saban put him out there, and he failed miserably. No disrespect to Tyler Buckner, the kid wasn't ready to play. And every Bama fan, pardon my language, had an oh shit moment. Something that everybody else already knew. All these people that think they know didn't know. You had half the team in the locker room pissed about him starting. You had half the team mad about it, and they really didn't give a good effort. Now they went out there and tried their best to win the game, but football is a game where you can't hide your passion. If it ain't in you, it's gonna show from the first snap. This ain't basketball where I could be Jordan and you can put me around 3 or 4 okay people and we still win the game. This is football where it's a collision sport. Excuse me, it's basketball is a collision sport. This is basketball is a contact sport. Football is a collision sport. If it's not in you, Ebony, it'll show, right? South Florida wanted that game. They wanted to win that game and they played their asses off to win it. Alabama played not even their asses off. They played probably one side of their asses off, their left cheek off, and still won. Now, here's the problem with that. Jalen Milroe didn't start that game. And I think that's the game where all the fans started to say, okay, Saban, we trust you. You go ahead and start who you want. And we took off from there. Texas, we know what happened in the Texas game. Um, South Florida has done a lot of talking, and football is a kind of sport where you take all those kind of things into account. You can believe. I'm telling you personally, they know, they know. I talked to, they know that these people are
Yeah.
talking. They are very aware of that, and it's okay. It's okay. I told John last night. I understand what South Florida is doing. I gave this analogy for everybody that has social media. If you have social media, go put something positive. Oh, it's a beautiful day and the birds are chirping. Nobody's gonna give a damn. Nobody's gonna give a damn. I mean, it's sad that it's like that. Go put
100%.
I hate everybody. All you are gobble weebles or something like that. Go put something negative. You're gonna have 1,000 likes in 20 minutes. You
Yep.
know what I'm saying? So I understand what South Florida's doing. They're taking this opportunity. They're playing the University of Alabama. They're marketing themselves in the process. I'm not mad at them for that, but here's the flip side of that, man. Somebody's got to get belt put to ass for this, right? You can't hide when the kickoff starts, right?
Yep.
Um, we need to do our part as fans, though, right? Let me get on the fans for a minute. Bryant Denny Stadium suck right now. I don't care what nobody tell you. If you think Bryant Denny is jumping, go watch a Tennessee game. Go watch a Texas A&M game.
Texas
You're
A&M.
gonna get you're gonna get your feelings hurt. Fans need to stop being old Miss fans with this wine and cheese and go out there and go home horse. If you go home not horse, you hadn't done your job. Make South Florida understand. Go back to 2016 and turn BDS into that BDS when we had Jonathan Allen and Reuben Foster and Derrick Henry. Go back to that BDS and make Bryant Denny a hostile environment. Yes, we've won hella games, 6 championships. Hadn't lost but one game against Texas and 2 games at LSU in 8 years, whatever the hell it is. It's time. Yes, thank you, Ebony. Thank you. And Ebony was there last week. Ebony texted me. Ebony hit me. She was like, "Bruh, what is going on with y'all fans, bruh?" Now she been in Ohio State and all these other places, Cleveland Browns, and she was asking like, "What the hell's going on with y'all?" Fans need to get out. We need to do our part, man. You cannot get on the team if we don't do our part as fans, right?
100%.
South Florida was very disrespectful to the University of Alabama. So was LSU when Coach Orgeron was there when he was in the middle of our field. We put belt to their asses very badly. Devontae Smith is still scoring right now, right? If you go to Baton Rouge, Devontae is on the field right now scoring a touchdown. The thing that we got to do is we have to understand this team is going to come in and they may possibly think they can win the game. In the words of Coach Saban, we got to do what we can do to change their mind, right? And at the end of the day, this team has a great offense, man. Well, let me take that back. They have a great offensive scheme. Their quarterback, Byron Brown, this kid is great. Me and Ty and John just talked about it off air. This is a kid that you have to play your pass lanes very, very disciplined. This is a kid that I don't think he's comfortable, just my humble opinion, going to his third read a lot of the times, right? He'll go from 1 to 2, and after that 2, if the 2's not open, that cat feet, he's going to get going on you. You have to be disciplined in your pass lanes and don't let this kid find a crease because he'll make 3rd and 8 into 1st and 10 very, very fast. This is a team that'll split their wide receivers all the way to the hugging the sideline mode. They do a lot of things creating space. They utilize their slot receivers a lot. The difference in them in Tennessee is this team, while they do run inside zone, they do run option reads, they do things of that nature. They do run power. They do run power, man. Don't get it wrong. And they do tempo. They'll try to run a. I'm talking about they just as fast as Ole Miss is, right? A lot of perimeter passing, a lot of stuff outside the hash marks. Deep shots are included. Just like John said, they want you to play one safeties. They want you to play single high safety. They want you to commit resources to the box to stop the inside zone. That way they can throw the ball in space. Remember this too, key point. When you have space like that, guys, when you create a lot of space, it makes the reads for the quarterback easier, right? When you create space, the reads for the quarterback is a lot easier. It's a lot easier to read where you go with the ball. It's a lot easier to go from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, hot route. It's a lot easier to read that stuff when it's not cluttered, when it's spaced out, right? So they want you to play man coverage, right? But here's the thing: we're gonna be out in 2 safety high. We're gonna be in 2 safety high. We're not gonna commit extra resources to the box, right? When you have 2 safety high, then we can get those guys to play 2 safety high. Then the run game is gonna take over. So I think Alabama's in for a big day. I think Jalen Miro is in for a big day. And we need the fans to come out and execute and really, really help the team because this game is important. This game is important to the world because we need to send a statement. The team wants to make a statement, and I think they'll do that.
So I have a bit of a theory, Coach Sean, and the other day I was on a show and I said I have a theory about Alabama's defense, and I'm very interested to see if it's true in this game, and I want to hear your take on this. Because Womack traditionally plays a lot of single high safety, a lot of cover 3. Like that's what he loves to do. But knowing that last week we saw something where the defensive line, and when I say defensive line, I'm all encompassing. Everybody that's on that line of scrimmage in the box is what I'm considering defensive line for simplicity's sake. But last week, the majority of the time, it was bandit, defensive tackle, wolf, right? Usually 2 bandits on the field, defensive tackle, wolf. I'm wondering in this game, if we don't see bandit, defensive tackle, wolf to account for the run game that they want to do. Because in my mind, you put a Tim Keenan and a James Smith out there with an LT Overton on one side, that's going to be really interesting to see how they stop, right? That's a lot more beef on the interior, a lot harder to run against that just because of pure size. But I think that the beautiful thing Womack is experiencing is he's never had guys like LT Overton, like Quay Russaw, let's be honest, like anybody in those rooms, right? Any of the bandits, any of the wolves. He's never had athletes like this where he's just like, oh, I can literally put a bunch of defensive ends on the field and they can't run the ball on us because these guys are that good. Oh, wow. Okay. Let's try that. And beautiful to watch. The other thing I noticed, Coach Sean, and I'm interested in your take, I would bet money that Sab gets another interception this game because of the amount of comeback routes that USF employs. It's one of those offenses, and I talked about this yesterday in my breakdown, where they lull you to sleep. comeback route, comeback route, comeback route. Oh, now it's a double move on the outside and they're trying to hit you deep because your safety, your corner tried to jump the comeback route going over the top. Then you look at what they do in the run game. Read option. He's handing it to the running back, running back, running back, running back. Oh, now your end collapses and the quarterback keeps it and he's gone.
It's a fact.
We're going to show you screen, but we're not going to take the screen. We're not going to take the screen. And then boom, we take the screen whenever all of your guys bail because they're like, oh, that's eye candy. This is a team that does a really good job employing eye candy and trying to get the defense to create tendencies so that they can exploit those tendencies. So that's what they do offensively. Now, defensively, guys, let's talk about USF's defense versus Alabama's offense, because on the back end, if they're in single high safety a lot of the times and Alabama establishes a run game, they're SOL, right? Like, I just don't know what you do at that point if you're them. What do you go cover zero and just say, screw it, both safeties in the box, and we'll just roll the dice and let them run right by us? I'm not being funny. I'm genuinely asking because they are in one high safety at a disproportionate amount of the time. I was charting this when I was watching the film. I stopped charting it when I got 28 plays into their game last weekend against Bethune, and they had only had one play where they weren't in cover high. So 27 out of 28 plays, one high safety. Yeah. But Coach Sean, I want to start with you on this. What I do like that they do on the defensive side is something I already alluded to, the way they send pressure. They are aggressive up front. Yeah. How can Alabama's offensive line scheme this year, as well as the personnel, really mitigate the pressure that USF wants to send at you?
The offensive line has to be in very, very, very good chemistry with each other on pass-offs, on stunts and things. Oh, shout out to Ebony. You already know, Ebony. You already know. We talked about that, and you was 100% correct.
No, that is true. It's been a problem for a few years. People have gotten so spoiled and used to winning that it's like, oh, we'll leave in the third quarter. No.
Yeah, it's crazy.
First off, I'm too cheap. If I paid for something, I'm staying.
That's me.
Facts. The offensive line's chemistry need to be on point because that's how you pick up pressure from stunts. That's how these ridiculous blitz packages that great coaches come up with. Everything from the center to the left side, guard tackle, and tight end, everything from the center to the right side, guard tackle. It has to be in good congruence with each other, man, on the practice field. Those stunts and things of that nature. That's what Michigan used to kill us with, man. Michigan would bring these crazy pressures. Nobody would pick the dude up, and we just get Jalen killed, right? So the offensive line really needs to be, have a great week of practice and preparation and film study. Film study, man. The film is where I tell people all the time, man, the best coaches, even a coach that's not as good with X's and O's, if he has a good film study, that makes up for a lot, man. I've had coaches that were outstanding with X's and O's, didn't really even need the film, right? I've had coaches that weren't the best with the X's and O's, but could point out everything in the film. We taking notes. I mean, so film study and this week of preparation is huge with teams like this. And let me say this. When we go on offense, watch the first series because the first series of the game, when I used to coach offense, the first series of the game, when you watching the defense, that will tell you what they've been practicing on, right? In other words, if they come out and they're in single high safety, that tell you that they're trying to stop the run game. They're willing to let Jalen be Jalen. They just don't want the running game to get off, right? If they come out, they come out with both safeties on the hashes, deep, shallow. If they come out with two safeties, right? That tells you that they don't want Jalen Milroe to beat them, right? They're going to stop the deep pass. They're going to stop the intermediate pass. They're not going to commit extra resources right off to the run game. Now, obviously, that changes if some success starts happening on the offense. But that first series and how they come out will tell you what they're going to focus on, right? It'll tell you what they're afraid of the most. And I do believe I think they're going to come out in double safeties. I don't think they're going to come out in single high safety. I just don't think that, right? It's not to say they won't play some of that during the game, but I think when they come out, they'll have both safeties out there. I really believe that. I know for a fact with this Coach DeBoer offense. And remember, guys, they didn't have film on Alabama with Coach DeBoer at Alabama. Last week, nobody had any film on Alabama. All they had was Washington's offense, right?
Yep.
It's just one game, but you at least have a game to see how we play. Now, I'm of the mindset I think South Florida's going to score against us. I don't think they're going to score a lot, but I think they're going to get in the end zone against us. If they don't, thank God, I'll easily take that wrong, right? I'll gladly take that being wrong. But I do think that with a week of preparation, a week of film, how we play, we didn't show a lot against Western Kentucky, but we showed enough to understand that what our base is. And if you give a good offensive coach your base, they can devise some things. We have a very, very young secondary, some talented kids, but it's not a question of talent. If you come out in a bunch set, it confuses young kids who hadn't had game experience. Bunch sets, mesh routes, things of that stuff, running through traffic, basic stuff, man. And it's not so much picking on veterans like Malachi and Keon at the safety spots and the spots like that. It's the corners, right?
Yep.
You come out in bunch sets and put your corners and young linebackers in a situation to where they have to cover things and switch offs, pass offs, things of that nature. You start running cross routes from the offensive perspective. Who got this guy? Who got that guy? He releases inside. Who picks him up? He releases outside. Who's got leverage on him? Right, especially when you're playing man coverage against these guys. This is not this pattern match defense. So your man is your man. And so I think South Florida may get in the end zone once or twice. I believe that. It's a young secondary. And I'm anxious to see these guys hit some adversity. I don't want the first time they face adversity to be on the road at Wisconsin.
Yeah, I
You know
agree.
what I'm saying? I don't mind seeing them give up a pass play or two. Face that adversity now at home so we can work on it. I don't want to see you face adversity on the road because one bad play can turn to 2, can turn to 3, can turn to 4 on the road like that.
I mean, I thought that, listen, that was biblical right there. What Coach Sean just told y'all, that was biblical. Truly. I want for the first few drives, South Florida to be, how do I say this? Having success. Why? Because we're going to play Tennessee before you know it. They both run veer and shoot. All respect to Brown, the quarterback for South Florida. I'm excited to watch Nico versus NC State because Nico last week was great. And you can say, but Ty, it's Chattanooga. And you're right. You're right. I don't care who the opponent is. If the receiver is running a route and does this with his hands and the ball comes and hits him right in the hands, I don't care who your opponent is. That's elite placement, right? Like not having to do anything other than this right here and there the ball sails. You need to get acclimated to this veer and shoot. So I absolutely hope that they are able to find some success and then the defense adjusts. John, anything to add to that?
I mean, Coach nailed it right on the head for the most part, definitely. What I'm interested in is not really being talked about as much is we know about the speed of Ryan Williams. We know about Kendrick Law. We know about the popular guys. I'll just leave it at that. What we're not talking about is how do you alleviate the pressure these guys are going to bring? It's speed and space, right? Ryan Williams. But I think the breakout game is going to be for Kobe Prentice this game. I think it's going to be a spot for him to stand out. Last week, if you go back and watch the film, we ran jet sweeps. It never happened. It never got tossed off or passed off to him. No, but I think this is all a storm incoming, right? So it's slowly piecing together this offense. It's slowly piecing together the defense as well, right? It's almost like Kalen DeBoer and the staff is figuring out how these players play one game at a time, and they're going to continue adding one piece to the puzzle as we're getting closer to the Georgia game, in my opinion. I was hoping that Wisconsin would have looked a little bit better than they did last week, honestly, just to be more of a test. But I was not impressed at all going back and watching them play. But once again, I think it is a step up from what you're going to see at USF. But I think the creative pressure that USF does bring is going to be interesting to see how this offensive line works with that, right? Because we already talked about Elijah Pritchett to ad nauseum as well, his failings as of last week. But I'm interested to see, can Welcome Formby perform like he did last week? Because no matter where you stuck him at last week, he did his job, right? We already know Jaden Roberts. We already know Tyler Booker and those guys. Tyler Booker, by the way, shout out, bro. That dude was putting defensive linemen in like the second row of the stadium. Like it was ridiculous how much he was getting off.
Interior 3 is unbelievable
Yeah,
for Alabama.
my goodness.
Unbelievable.
But yeah, no, I think it's going to come down to just speed and space to alleviate that, right? Are we going to see bubble screens, running backs out to the flat, stuff like that to alleviate the pressure? I think it's just this offense is exciting to talk about, and it's exciting to watch because it seems like there's almost no solution to this offense right now because we played Western Kentucky. We're about to play USF. But like Coach said, I'm interested to see like what's it going to look like against a little bit of adversity, right? What happens? And I'm talking about the offense as well. What happens when you do have a defense that can match the speed or whatever it may be
Right.
against that game plan? What are you going to do then? That's where I think Jalen Milroe takes his experience, his leadership, and works his way through this adversity. And I think this possibly could be a game creating pressure. You know what I mean? So I thought Western Kentucky would have done a better job last week, right? They played multiple coverages, all this stuff, disguise a lot of coverages. But USF's going to bring corner blitzes. They're bringing a whole lot of everything. And I'm interested to see how he's going to read that, how he's going to read the disguises and stuff like that and make the adjustments because he's not a young buck anymore. Right. So, yeah, it's almost like you're getting to see Jalen Milroe evolve in front of you. Essentially, that's what I'm taking from this. And that's what I'm taking from the USF game. I'm wanting to watch specific players. Malachi Moore, seasoned guy. I'm excited to see Jalen Mbakwe, Brown, right? These guys on the back end, stuff like that. Quay Russo, Robinson, right? Living in the backfield last week. How are they going to look in this game? Yeah, it's just one step at a time. And I'm just excited to watch the game. I'm glad football is back.
Exactly. Really quickly, Ty, after John, I was reading some of the guys in the chat. Wisconsin, remember this too, guys. Your biggest improvement is from week
Week
1 to
1 to
week
week
2.
2.
Yep.
Don't be
Great
fooled by
point.
that Wisconsin game coming out. But a team like Wisconsin is a Big Ten team. They didn't look very good, right?
No.
I agree with John 1,000%. Here's the thing, though. They'll get up for the Alabama game. They'll put their pride on the line for that Alabama game. Their fans are gonna probably have a record attendance. They'll play better than they played all
Yeah.
season against Alabama. Please don't let that week 1 game fool you. Luke is a good coach. He'll have those guys ready to play
Yeah.
at Alabama.
They are
And one
well
thing,
coached.
shout out to my brother, Coach Carl, man. Shout out to Coach Carl, man, on the Block Sports Talk. Antoine made a really, really good comment, man. I couldn't agree more. Antoine was dead on when he said, I do believe these guys will play cover 3. Because remember, when you talk about cover 3, man, cover 3 really takes away it's supposed to take away the vertical route, right?
Yeah.
Especially the deep middle, right? It's really strong in the deep middle. Usually cover 3, you can change these things and mix them up, but usually cover 3, you usually have 3 defenders that's really, really, really deep and 3 to 4 underneath. You know what I
Yep.
mean? That's cover
They
3,
play a lot of
right?
cover 3.
Yeah, you're dividing the field into thirds, right? So that's how you attack cover 3. That's not letting you go deep. I used to personally love when people play cover 3 because we'd have 100 yards rushing at half,
I'd say, yeah.
right? So it's pick your poison. I think Antoine was 100% right. I think they have no choice but to pick the run game as to what to stop. Because if you focus on the pass game, the run game is going to absolutely kill you at Alabama. So I do believe that because that's what people do. They try to stop Jalen Milroe. They try to blitz the edges, rattle him. They feel like the offensive line and Jalen Milroe is the way to attack Alabama. So Antoine was 100% correct on that.
Last thing I'll add on this, guys. John, you said you thought Prentice was going to have a good game. Love that call. I would actually add one more name onto that. I think Cuevas is going to be a name to keep up with just because I think DeBoer and them will see that. I would not be shocked at all to see Cuevas have some routes designed where he's just sitting in the empty space left by the blitz as the safety valve to just easy pass. Oh, would you look at that? We're at a first down. Easy pass. And then they have to adjust because it's like, okay, they're just going to dink and dunk down this field. So listen, a lot of interesting stuff for this USF game. Coach Sean, I completely agree with you. I wouldn't bet on a shutout just because, and I know people are going to say, but it's South Florida, guys. We're here talking scheme.
Yeah.
They have a solid scheme, right? Especially offensively that you just don't see as often as some other things, right? Like you're going to see more West Coast or more pro style. Veer and shoot, you're not going to run into that as much,
This is
especially the
Art
way they like.
Browse-esque,
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
straight
Like
up.
you're just not, there's not a whole lot of teams that are doing what they're doing. So going to be a lot of fun. I want to talk about this OU Sooner versus Houston game very quickly because unfortunately, this was a game that 2-3 weeks ago I thought we'd have a little bit more in-depth analysis on. Not in terms of, oh, could OU be on upset alert? No. In terms of like, oh, what can Houston do to really try and bring that next level out of Oklahoma? Where can they test them so that Oklahoma can grow? Fortunately, OU fans, I think you're about to blow out another team. Unfortunately, OU fans, I do think there is something to trying to be tested, right? I think it helps you grow. Now, that being said, next week you got Tulane, and we all know Tulane's a team that you just can't overlook. They're really solid, really, really solid. The only thing, and then I'll pass it to y'all, I want to see from Oklahoma is shoring up that offensive line. And the only reason I bring that up is because I know they were without some starters against Temple, and offensive line takes time to gel. So unfortunately, now you're a little bit behind the clock in letting your offensive line gel. Granted, you have Bill Bedenbaugh. I will always preface that whenever we talk about OU offensive line. You got one of the best in the business, if not the best in the business. So yeah, I want to see that Oklahoma offensive line. Guys get healthy. Guys go out there. I don't think you're going to see a lot more than what they gave against Temple. I think offensively, if they got to half the page, maybe they go to the bottom of the page this time just to continue working things out, live game action. There's no better time to do it. OU's defense is incredibly opportunistic, very veteran. I expect them to continue doing their thing against this Houston team. I think it'll look decently similar where the defense is just having their way. Coach Sean, thoughts on this game?
Man, listen, Oklahoma is coming off of what, 51-0, 51-3, 6, something, whatever it
I
is,
think it was
51 to
51
something.
to 3, multiple like
Yeah,
6 turnovers.
yeah, man. They exactly, Ty. They coming off a great win against Temple at home. They put belt to ass
Yeah.
against this Temple team in every way possible. Houston was what, 4-8 last year, I think, 2-7 in the Big 12 conference, and just got their asses whipped by
Bad.
UNL
UNLV.
freaking V 27 to nothing or
3, I
27 to
think.
what? Yeah,
I think it
whatever
was
it
something
was.
like that.
Yeah, I know it was 27 to something, right? If I remember reading that they got outgained 308 to 247 by
I do
UNLV.
like UNLV's offensive coordinator, though, Brennan
Yeah.
Marion. He was the guy at Pitt a few years ago
Mhm.
whenever Pitt had that high-flying offense, and he wasn't the offensive coordinator, he was the wide receiver coach, but
Yeah.
he has what's called the go-go offense.
Yeah.
Fascinating
Yeah.
stuff. Like, genuinely, that's a name to know. He's a young star in this league. I'm sorry, coach. I did just want
No,
to
no, you good. You good. The
give love to
go-go
Brennan Marion.
offense, man. I'll tell you this. If UNLV can outgain them 308 to 247, Oklahoma's about to put belt to ass. This won't be a game. This will be the game kind of like us last week. These guys will come out for Oklahoma and they'll get ahead, and their second string will be in the game by the third quarter. I look for Oklahoma to probably beat them. Now, I will give a score prediction on anybody that's not my team. I look for Oklahoma to probably beat this team 53 to 10 or something like that, 53 to 14, maybe. Maybe they score late. Oklahoma win this game easily. That's just the bottom line.
John?
Yeah, look, I'm not gonna sit here and get into anything specific. Me, if you guys don't know, I'm a huge Jackson Arnold fan, right? Been covering this guy since high school, obviously. We already know about the offensive line. We know that's got to get shored up, right? The only thing I'm looking at in this game is the progression from Jackson Arnold, right? So the comfortability factor, I loved what they did with him in that offense. Roll him out, let him utilize his strengths, throwing the deep ball on the run. That's one thing when he goes to throw outside the hashes, especially in movement, it's crazy how accurate that dude is, right in the basket. I think you're going to see just a lot more of that in the Houston game. Hopefully I can watch him play a little bit more. he didn't really have a chance to stay on the field too long because the game was over pretty quick. But yeah, I'm honestly just wanting to see the progression of Jackson Arnold in this game, right?
Yeah, no, I wish we would be learning more about Oklahoma in this game. They're going to kill Houston.
Who's Oklahoma playing their third game?
Tulane.
Okay. And Tulane plays Kansas State this week, so we'll know quite a bit about Tulane this week.
Yeah. Good team.
Yeah, they've been good in the past couple of years. Facts.
Solid team. I think they did lose. Didn't they lose their coach this past offseason? Or am I crazy in thinking?
I don't think Tulane did. Maybe I don't think the Tulane lost their coach, so I have to look it up.
I thought they lost some people because I mean they've been that good, right? Like they've been a solid team, and I don't expect for them to be a bad team. Hopefully not. At least would love to see Oklahoma really take on a team like and I know people are gonna sit there and go, "Oh my God, these guys are hyping up Tulane." Tulane's been a good team, man. Like they have. There's no if, ands, or buts about it. Tulane's been a solid team, man. Like we're here to talk scheme. We're here to talk ball. We're not here to fluff. Brandon says Tennessee versus Oklahoma is going to be fire 1,000% in week 4. But that's exactly why, Brandon, if I'm OU, I'm hoping that Tulane does look really good so that I get that nice test game, an opponent that is formidable before I take on Tennessee, right? Now, luckily for Oklahoma, your former offensive coordinator came from the Art Briles system. So while it's not completely the same, and Brent Venables worked with Heupel. Heupel's offense has evolved over the years. It is a little bit different, but there is that level of familiarity where you're going to be familiar with base concepts he wants to do. That's going to be a great game. Genuinely, OU versus Tennessee from a schematic standpoint, gonna be money. I mean, it's gonna be so much fun. Do you think McVay will play for some of the hurt players? He could. It all depends on what this offensive line does, but I'm not sure outside of Proctor, Maxtree, who else is hurt on the offensive line.
Have we heard anything about Caden to this point?
Heard he was week to week, and that there was a the last thing I heard DeBoer say, and obviously I didn't hear it. It was an article on 3. Shout out on 3. They were talking about it. It sounded positive, but it could be one of those things where continue developing depth. You should beat USF. Go bring him back for Wisconsin. That way he has that game before Georgia.
Well, we'll know today for sure because you guys saw with NCAA that ruling did go through to where the day prior they do have to release injury reports and who's playing and who's not playing. So we will know as of today what's going on. So
yeah, sports betting changes the landscape of everything.
Exactly. I think it passed like 4 or 5 days ago. So and this is the first week they're putting in actually in place for the SEC. So
sport betting changes the landscape for everything, man.
He does not play. They need to really get on Elijah because film study. If I was playing Alabama, I would attack Elijah Pritchard, and it's just no disrespect. It's just the truth. I would send stunts his way. I would make sure we gap control him, and we would do everything his gap. We would run everything at him. We would put our best edge rusher on that side and give him work all day. I can imagine they're going to try to attack that guy if he plays because Elijah played well during the course of the game, but he started off a little rocky. Got beat on a simple bull rush.
Too far over.
Yeah, his pass set is very, very, very. I hate to say lazy. His pass set is needs some work. You know what I mean? A lazy pass set and a good pass rusher will always get you on the bad side of things. So you know he gets his hands up very, very late. His kick slide is not deep. They teach you to get depth on your kick slide while not giving up too much depth, so they can beat you on the inside. So they definitely need to work with him on his play. He played well in the run game, but I definitely because see that pinning and pulling makes up a lot, man, for tackles that can't, you know, that's not very aggressive. Man, when you see Tyler Booker and Roberts bearing down on you, coming on the left side, and they both Booker's leading him and Roberts is right behind him. Man, that's horrible if you're an edge rusher. That's horrible.
Or a
Straight
blitzing
up.
defensive back,
Or a
and now you
yes,
have to you have to take
pancake.
that on.
Yeah, it's over with. Pancake.
So I saw in the comments, Brandon Wilkins says SEC versus SEC. No, I have the actual report here released by the NCAA. No, if it features one SEC team, then it's a requirement they must release it because it's being implemented across the board. So the Big Ten already implements this as well. The SEC just adopted it, and it's basically going everywhere at this point.
Yeah, well, it has to because of sports betting.
Yeah, exactly. And it's by the way, it's for all sports. It says the major sports. They're highlighting basketball, baseball, and now obviously football. But yeah, it says
Boy, so
if
I
it's
can
a
hide
feature
an
of one
injury like
team.
no one else in underwater basket weaving. Bet.
Polo.
Bet.
Tyler Booker would be a first round pick. You heard it here first.
Oh my gosh, there's no doubt about it. He might be the first guard off the board.
Breaking news, right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean I think he'll be the first guard off the board. Off subject, Arkansas or OSU? This is a great question, Ron. Great question. We're actually going to be talking about this on Bleacher Report. And they're doing a new segment called Mortal Lock, where it's like, who do you think's going to beat the spread? I went ahead and made my Mortal Lock pick, an outright upset. I'm going to take Arkansas over Oklahoma State. Here's the reason why. Oklahoma State allowed a wide receiver to have over 150 yards on them last week. This Arkansas offense has got juice. Now, I'm not sure how deep they are. Oh, fan addict, don't tell me that.
Oh, you didn't see the news then. Go ahead. Sorry.
Don't tell me that. Don't break my heart, fan addict. I need you to fluff my ego right now and make me feel like I had a good pick. Oklahoma State gave up a lot of yards on the outside, and they gave up a lot of yards, period, to South Dakota State. Now, we know that SDSU, NDSU, solid football teams. This offense for Arkansas has got a lot of juice. Now, I do think this is going to be an offensive game. And I don't know. That was my upset pick. Coach Sean, you're shaking your head. What's up?
I'm with Coach I. I think Oklahoma State is going to whip their asses. I do. I think Oklahoma State has a lot to play for. They're going to be Gundy's going to have those kids excited to play at SEC school. I think Oklahoma State it's Ed Boone Pickens. I think Arkansas about to lose, bro. I hope they don't. I'm an SEC guy. Arkansas, please win. Please make me wrong. But I'm with Coach I, man. If I was a betting man, which I'm not, I would pick Oklahoma State straight up. If that's the case. So what's the line on this game?
I think 7.5.
It's moved for one key reason. Ollie Gordon's not playing in this game. He's been officially ruled out. So keep that in mind for all you bettors out there. And look, the reason, by the way, if you go look at his injury report, I warn you not to do it because while he's out, you probably don't want to hear why. It's rumored, right, why he's out. And there's, for some reason, like legit article writers are spreading this a little bit. Not a big fan of it, but anyways, no, he has been ruled out for this game, and I like Taylor Green. Like, I'm not saying the dude's going to outright gun them down as far as like just beating them by himself, but I think without Ollie Gordon, I think Oklahoma State's in a little bit of trouble. And I think
no, was that Ollie Gordon one just a troll?
So I've seen two pieces of it. That's what I'm trying to figure out because I've seen it reported by two legitimate agencies, right, that you would hear from and say, okay, that's probably true, but we've already seen the result of this. So that's why I'm trying. That's what I was actually going to ask you guys. Have you guys like seen anything else outside of why he's supposedly missing the game?
I didn't know he was missing the game.
So
neither.
Let me see here. Let me look, because if it was just a troll, if it came out just as a troll, then yeah. Let's see here. And let's see here. Case at 5. Not her. So it says nothing significant, and I believe that's why I hate when people like start writing these articles. because you don't know. And this is why I'm so glad the SEC is putting this crap in place. That way you're not going to hear this stuff.
Remember
I'm
the
looking at
name
it right now.
Trent Howland.
Trent
Just
Howling.
remember, yes, Trent Howland. I think he spells it Howland, maybe. Kid about 6'2", 235. He about that action. That I don't think he's played a lot there yet. You know,
Coach I says the Oklahoman reports he's playing. Okay.
Okay, then that's all I needed to hear. Then is something like that. Because
I was about to say Trent will tote that rock, man. You know, I don't know what string he is, but that kid came from Indiana. He can tote that rock, man. He's a bigger back. You know, that kid is a thumper, you know.
Let's see. Here.
So here's the only thing that worries me, Coach Sean.
Mm-hmm.
This Oklahoma State team had a good amount of trouble bottling up South Dakota State's rushing attack. And like I said, then they had a wide receiver go for 150 yards on them. They gave up quite a few yards, and I don't think South Dakota's offense is near as explosive as what Petrino, Green, and Jaquindon Jackson are doing out there at Arkansas. And my thought on this was, okay, if you can't stop South Dakota State at a reasonable clip, because South Dakota State got off 20 on them, 20 points. It was 44-20. How are you going to stop Talon Green if you couldn't stop that rushing attack whenever their quarterback is super electric and they have Jaquindon Jackson? That was kind of my thought process on this. So I don't know. I'm not the biggest believer in Gundy from the perspective of I think he's incredibly inconsistent.
Oh yeah, facts.
Yeah,
that's true.
So I can't. Once again, you're seeing it on now one legitimate source that's actually reporting on it, and one other one flipped the story saying it was just a rumor. So I'm going with rumor on that one. And the line I'm looking at, they just released the line again as of 2 minutes ago. Oh my gosh, where's it at? I can never make things easy inside these articles.
Remember this,
they
guys.
could have, but overlooking someone to the tune of 150 yards on the outside and then having a running back average 8 yards per carry, that's wild.
Yeah.
Remember this too. In college football, not so much in the pros, but in college, home field matters.
True. Very true.
Is it a night game or a day game?
I don't know the time. I'm so bad about looking at time.
I hate looking at time because I never know if it's
11
East
a.m.
Coast.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
11 a.m.
I hate those games.
They always play the SEC against these out of conference people at 11 o'clock. It's crazy.
Yeah,
I'm looking for the line.
Oklahoma State is the favorite, right?
Or what, 7.5 or something like that, probably.
Yep, but we'll see. Talon Green last week was 16 of 23, 229 through the air, 2 touchdowns. Bowman 24 of 33, 245, 2 touchdowns. Jaquindon Jackson last week only had 8 carries for 101 yards. Ollie Gordon 28 carries, 126 yards. Neither team had a wide receiver hit 100 yards last week. And then also Talon Green was just shy of 100 yards on the ground. I think he had, let me see. He had 88 yards on 6 carries as well. That's going to be fun to watch how they try and stop that because he's so explosive.
He is.
Man, that's killing me. Coach, I was hoping you'd be like, yeah, Arkansas is going to pull off the upset. And Coach I would be like, yeah. And I'd be like,
I don't know how good Arkansas is, man. The opponent they play, shout out to my SWAC. I don't know how good. I know South Dakota, being they're not a world beater, but they're much better than who Arkansas played.
Arkansas Pine Bluff.
Yeah, no, and I'll agree with that. I'll agree with that 100%.
I ain't hating on my SWAC for all my partners that's watching this. I come from that. But I just think, man, they'll get up to play Arkansas. It's an SEC squad. If it's one game that he'll be consistent on is playing against the SEC team, I would love for Arkansas to go in there and put belt to ass. Oh my God, I would love to be wrong, but I feel like they're going to lose this game. I just don't. I don't know if they'll beat Oklahoma State at home, man, this early in the season. I just don't know. But you might be right, Ty. You might be right.
I'll still take Arkansas in this game because I watched them beat Texas. Granted, I was at home, right? So a couple of years ago. And I believe Sam Pittman at this point's halfway playing for his job as Bobby P's in the background running that offense. So
That's a fact.
Yeah. Let's do one more game, guys. Texas, Michigan, because I got apparently Bleacher Report wants us on call. Our
Let me go
time
first,
is
John.
10:30.
yeah,
I'll make it very simple. I think Texas is about to put belt to ass. Man, Michigan, bro, you cannot lose 18 people off a team and still be the same. Michigan be a good team. This early, I think Texas is going to beat them. I just do.
Yeah, very simple. You lost everyone. You lost Jim
Yeah.
Harbaugh. You lost
Started
almost
last
half
week.
the staff that went with Jim Harbaugh. Jerome Moore, great guy. Love
Not
the
even on
passion.
contract yet.
Yeah. And by the way, yeah, he hasn't signed anything. So like, this is very iffy. Now, the only thing that has Michigan on the ropes for this a little bit, they're at home in the big house,
Yeah.
right? So,
It's a
but
fact.
look, I don't believe there's a realistic expectation that Michigan's going to pull this game out. Yeah, I can't find a way to make sense of it at all.
Yeah.
There's just too much lost in the NFL draft, and there's too much lost as far as staff.
And everybody's in chat saying Texas lost 15. Sure, but they replaced their losses exponentially better than Michigan. What position?
Facts.
I would ask anybody in the chat talking about the Texas loss, because I absolutely do think that, Texas did lose a lot. What position did Michigan replace that's better than what Texas replaced? And that's a genuine question.
And Texas didn't lose a lot of their second. They're too deep. Michigan lost too deep everywhere. Keon should still be there, for God's sakes. He's at Bama now. Texas replaced their start. It's what Ty just said, with kids who were damn near just as good, maybe even better in some spots.
But the secondary, Makuba, right? I mean, that was a big win for them. And then D-line, Gabriel, they didn't lose the D-line. So that's not like, you're right. Michigan has a better defensive line, but like, they also didn't lose the defensive line. So that doesn't really like fall into the replace category. I agree with you. Michigan's defensive line on the interior is better this year than Texas's, but they didn't replace that. So,
and Texas didn't lose Sark and half their staff. Like, that plays a big role in this. Like, you know what I mean?
Huge role. Yes.
Yeah. Mark, nobody here hates OU.
No, because I picked no, I did a video way back, about a month and a half ago, picking Fasusi to go to Texas, because that's what all the insiders were saying. So I just said I thought he would end up at Texas. So that made me an OU hater, apparently.
Well, yeah. No, he's always been very high on
Boomer crazy.
Oklahoma. So
put Boomers
Chicken
coming up
wins,
there.
Coach Sean, I will be insufferable. Yeah, and here's the thing, guys.
Crazy, man.
Here's the thing. One of these teams right now is far more one-dimensional on offense than the other one. Right? Don't get me wrong. I think Michigan's defense is legit. They are very, very good.
Yeah, they're still good on defense. Facts.
But I would point to Clemson, Georgia last week. Is Clemson's defense really, really good? Yeah. Yeah, it's very good. Very, very good. What happens when your offense is one-dimensional? The dam can only hold for so long before pressure bursts pipes.
Three and out.
That's what we saw. That's what we saw. Clemson's defense is darn good, gentlemen.
It's a fact.
But their offense is a different level of inept. Now, I'm not saying that Michigan's offense is inept, but what I'm saying is they are so new into this new offense that I'm not sure if week 2 is the time where they're going to be able to catch Texas. Makes you wonder how many offensive possessions Texas will actually get. As many as they can get Michigan off the field. Right? As many as they can get Michigan off the field.
I'm interested to see the turnout in this game for Michigan fans. You know what I mean? Like, I believe that's another thing, because if you look on Twitter, there's a lot of controversy on like Jerome Moore being the guy. Why does he not have a contract? You know what I mean? That type of thing. And I'm going to be real interested to see how the Big House shows up to this game. That's going to play a huge role in at least how this thing maybe stays close for a little bit.
Mark, this isn't true. Clemson defense has remained really good. Now, I'm not saying that losing Brent Venables didn't hurt. You look at the recruiting, that's where Brent Venables was so great for Clemson. And he's a great defensive coordinator, genuinely one of the best defensive minds in the nation. But saying Clemson's defense has struggled since Oklahoma plucked,
No.
that's not true. Clemson's defense has remained the best part of that team. Clemson has struggled since they lost Streeter and Tony Elliott.
Yep.
That's whenever they started struggling. You can chart it to that. Whenever they lost Tony Elliott and Streeter, that's whenever they have never been right on offense again. If anything, it's incredible what Clemson was able to do, losing a defensive coordinator of Brent Venables' caliber and not dropping off the face of a cliff.
And Todd Bates.
Yeah, that's incredible. I give them a round of applause for that, because most teams, you lose Brent Venables, Todd Bates, they fall off a cliff. Somehow Clemson avoided that. It's a numbers game, right? It's a numbers game. You look at here's a great example. You look at the Alabama versus Clemson national championship that went down to the wire, where it was like 45-41 or something like that. Clemson had 99 offensive plays. The dam broke. They weren't stopping Elliott and Jeff. Thank you. I don't know why. Who did I say?
He says Streeter. That's why I was wrapping my brain. Who's Streeter? That's why.
Well, Streeter was there, Brandon Streeter, but he was after.
Yeah.
He was after. It was Elliott and Jeff Scott. Thank you so much. That's who I meant, because they were the duo. They were always together.
Let me say this to a perfect cracker. You saying Texas is going to show that? Let me explain something to you, bro. That a lot of you non-SEC people that's just getting here don't understand. It's not playing Alabama that you got to worry about. The big games, the bigger.
He's trolling.
The good coach. But I'm saying, I know. I'm just saying this to the people that really think this way. The big games are easy to get up for. Playing Alabama at Alabama, playing Georgia. Those are games that the good coaches are spending time on right now. That's what I'm talking about. Like Luke Fickell, they ain't giving a damn about last week. They've been practicing for Alabama since last year, right?
Yeah.
It's the games like Arkansas on the road, Kentucky at home, Texas A&M on the road at the end of the season. Those are the games that usually reach up and bite you in this conference. That's what separates this conference from other conferences. Sure, we all know Texas will get up to play. It's easy to get up to play Bama, play Georgia. Those are the games. But coming to lowly Arkansas, you should know how that go personally, Texas fans, right?
Yep.
On the road at Arkansas, coming back playing Kentucky, who's very physical, at home, and then going back to Texas A&M, all in a row. These are games all this in a row. Those are the games that make this conference different than others.
Yeah. And Cracker's an OU fan, so he was.
Yeah, I know. That's what. But I think I've seen real Texas fans. Shout out to Texas John, my boy, and shout out to Money Mike. Those are Texas guys who be in here that think that way. So I wanted to speak on that for those guys. That was my opportunity.
Yeah, 100%. And listen, we've had players on this podcast that played in the SEC, played in the ACC, right? Shout out RJ. And RJ straight up said, "No, there's a difference, right? There's a difference in what you experience in that schedule versus what you experience in like the ACC." The ACC is usually one of the, let's be honest, one of the worst conferences. But he was talking about like, no, there is an absolute difference in the style of play and the level of physicality, all of this. Part of the reason why I think that the SEC got it right, adding in OU and Texas, two teams that could be like, oh, we're here now. This is what we need to do.
Yeah.
And that's why I've always remained high on those two additions, because let's see what they can do. And I think they'll be good. Honest question, Ty, can someone who doesn't make the college football truly win the Heisman? Jaden Daniels. So yeah.
Yeah, that's about literally.
Yeah, 100%. But I take Texas in this game against Michigan, just because I don't know if Michigan is going to be able to establish a passing game. And Dylan Edwards is really good as an exterior rusher. He's not like, he does not grade near as high as an interior rusher. Like, it's an incredible fall off from where he is as an exterior rusher and then as an interior rusher. And so, yeah, that's why if this game was at the end of the season, it'd be a little bit more difficult for me to pick this. But I'm just sitting here and I'm like, man, Michigan still is in that feeling out phase. And I don't know if they're going to be able to get this done this early in the season against Texas and y'all are right? Like, but one thing I will say is nobody ever provided me where Michigan replaced better than Texas. Right? Like that's y'all are all right in the chat saying Texas had a lot of losses. They did. They sent a lot of guys to the NFL. A lot of guys to the NFL. But they replaced better than Michigan did. They didn't lose as much staff. Now, losing Bo Davis is a big loss. There's no doubt about that.
Culture guy. Yep.
Yeah.
There's that's a big loss. But y'all have to understand, for me, timing is also a very, very big thing in this game. Now, Rob, I don't believe OU will lose 5 games. I don't believe that they will lose 5 games. I think that that's a very good squad. Very excited to see what their offensive line looks like. That's why I can't I can't say anything. Ty, backup running back, they improved better. Just did they take anybody as in the portal as a backup running back?
I don't know, but I know Texas is down to only 3 scholarship running backs.
Yeah, no, that's an area where Texas is genuinely like hurt. And there's Jaden Blue's a monster, but I grant you that one, Steven. I grant you that one just because of the lack of depth.
No, my take on that was I thought Jaden Blue, honest take here, I thought Jaden Blue should have been the starter over Baxter. In my opinion, go look at the numbers. I'm a numbers guy. That's kind of how I do my thing. And numbers don't lie to me.
Joe Willie, Bo Davis is at LSU. Bo Davis is at LSU. So, yeah, no, that hurts. That hurts. That's one area where I do agree. Texas's running back room, it's thin because of injuries.
Yeah.
But that's why I believe you're going to see Sark be much more creative in how he spreads the ball around, getting guys like wide receivers involved in short passes to kind of mitigate for the thinner running back room. And so they're going to be very multiple on what they want to do. And I just don't know that Michigan can present that same threat in the passing game. Now, running the ball, Michigan can run the ball very well, right? No doubt about it. But is that going to be the way you win the game? I don't know. I think it's going to be a really good game. I think it's going to be closer than the people who have Texas winning by a lot. I think it's going to be closer than people think. But I do think that being multiple will serve Texas as opposed to Michigan kind of still being one-dimensional on offense.
Can Michigan exploit the secondary of Texas? Do they have the passing credentials?
That's,
you know what I'm saying? I mean, even if they have some success running the ball against Texas, is that enough to keep Texas out of the end zone for 4 quarters? Can you, it's going to be interesting. Now, don't get me wrong. I think if Michigan play their game and really play really sound defense against Texas and make it tough for Texas. Michigan can win a low scoring game. I think
Yes.
they can at home, but I just don't know if your defense. I don't know if you don't have the passing game to exploit those matchups. I don't know if they can win this football game. I just don't know.
And that's why it wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world for Michigan to win this game. My last point, then
Yeah.
we'll close it out. It wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world, but y'all also have to understand I have built a lot of my analysis over the last few years of like being one dimensional in any facet of football is not a winning recipe. You can win some games, but are you going to win the big games? My theory has consistently been no, right? That I don't think that being one dimensional is going to serve you well. And I just think that if this game was at the end of the season and Michigan had been able to establish some sort of a passing attack, this would be a different conversation. But this early in, I just don't know that they present the ability to be as thorough on offense. Michigan portaled in a better kicker, says Steven. Hey, fair play. If they did fair play, because I asked the question, and if that's the truth, that's
true.
the truth. Fair play on that one, man. I love that. I love that. But, gentlemen, it's about that time. I got to head to Bleacher Report. Let's let everybody know where they can find you. Coach Sean, we'll start with you.
JMHO Sports Talk. Please tap in with me on Twitter. Try to get those numbers up. Trying to be a little more active on there. JMHO Sports Talk on Twitter and JMHO Sports Talk on YouTube.
Love it. Love it. And I love this right here by Steven. Hey, I just looked up their portal class. I love that, man. That's great. That's great. John?
Bama Talk with John on YouTube, and as you guys can see, at BT with John on Twitter. Same thing, trying to get those numbers up. And I'll also be watching the Oregon game, playing Boise State. How do they recover from that struggle win against Idaho?
Hey, Ginty is a monster.
So,
Ginty, Boise State's running back, monster.
Interesting
Love
game.
that cat. Oh, if y'all aren't watching him, you need to. Until next time, we will be live once again Monday. I will be live on Bleacher Report tomorrow after the Alabama game, giving my post-game analysis on that. Monday, we will be giving our recap for the weekend. Let's go, Arkansas. Let's beat down on Oklahoma State. Coach Sean said they were going to do it. Coach I said they were going to do it. Everybody picked Arkansas. They didn't pick Arkansas. I'm just trying to flex my ego. And until next time, let's give the spinning wheel of doom their due